This day is a day that I have been looking forward to for a long time. Brooke said 2 years, and really honestly, if we think back to 2 years ago in this community, most people in El Reno had no clue why Memorial Stadium was called Memorial Stadium. It happened somehow over the course of 70 years roughly that people had lost the stories, they had lost the names. There were a few individuals in the community, and you know who I'm talking about if you're those individuals, that you knew the story because you were one of the members of the families of the 44 who were still in this community, who still knew the story, who still remembered that original dedication of Memorial Stadium in 1949. But stories don't continue to live on in the heart of people unless we talk about them, we tell them, we share them. And unfortunately, many of those stories had been forgotten and many of those stories weren't being told. But I thank God that I had the opportunity to find an article. One of my students actually found an article, and we responded to that by saying, you know what, we have to do something with this. We have to do this. Just so you know a little bit of the history behind the project, we were doing research on families of El Reno, just in a general sense. Anybody that had graduated from El Reno, my students were doing research on that so that they could get firsthand tangible history of their community and of their families, and that was a very powerful project that we were able to do. And I had one student, Eduardo Orozco, who was a senior student at the time, in January of 2018, who did not know who he was going to research. And so I suggested that he look into researching First Lieutenant John Leon Lucas, who we now know is one of the 44. We knew that First Lieutenant Lucas had died in military service. We knew that he had Lucas Memorial Hall, which is a part of our junior high here, was named in his honor in 1967. We knew that, but we didn't know much of his story, and so I wanted my student to look into it and to do the research. And he stumbled across this article from 1949, which we actually have physical copies of now, that revealed the names of the 38 men that this stadium was originally dedicated to in 1949, on September 29th. And I was taken aback. I graduated from El Reno High School in 1997. I'm proud to be an alumni of El Reno High School. My dad, he graduated from El Reno High School in 1968. My mother graduated from El Reno High School in 1972. Several of our family members had graduated from El Reno High School. But none of them knew why Memorial Stadium was called Memorial Stadium. And so I didn't feel quite so bad that I didn't know the story until I read the article. And so I started asking around, and almost no one knew the story. And virtually no one that I talked to knew the names of the 38 that it was originally dedicated to. They didn't know the story. And so we had to do something about it. Over the course of doing more research, we were able to determine, of course, that there were 6 more who should have been added to the dedication. And we are very pleased that we have with us some family members of those 6 that we were able to add as well, that were originally left off, whether accidentally or intentionally. They were left off and they needed to be included this time. We have come here today to put the memorial back in Memorial Stadium. And I am so thankful that we are able to be here and we're able to tell their stories of sacrifice. And one of the things that I thought would be a good idea is, since the stories had been forgotten, I thought it would be a good idea not only to incorporate this as part of what I was doing with my English students and having them research out these 38 and then 44 individuals, but I thought, we need to have a memorial, we need to have their stories written, and it would be really nice if we could include their photographs. Because you know as well as I do, it's nice to put a face with a name. And so we looked and we looked and we looked and we looked, and we found family members, many of which, several of you probably have your own little story of, how in the world did you find me? I've heard that several times. How in the world did you find my family when we're in California, or we're in Colorado, or we're in Texas? How did you find me? Well, it was a lot of research. And we were delighted to do it, and so glad to make the contact. And some of you we just contacted literally this summer, and you're still here from across the United States. Some all the way from California that just found out at the end of the summer that they're part of the 44. And so we really are grateful for that. My students then worked tirelessly to prepare detailed biographies of these 44 individuals. We learned not only how they died, but what units they served with, when and where they were born, information about their families, and so much more. As I mentioned, we tried to track down any remaining family members of these 44 individuals, and what we found was absolutely astonishing. We found many nieces and nephews and great-nephews and nieces of the 44, along with a host of cousins of these 44 men, but we also found living grandchildren and great-grandchildren for some, living siblings of others, and even the widow of one of the 44 who is with us here today. An amazing story. Sons and daughters of the 44 we found, and of course every other relation in between that you can think of. But these are the people that they too sacrificed. They too sacrificed, because the 44 that we're honoring here today, they laid down their lives. They were willing to serve their country, and they were willing to pay the greatest price. But their families sacrificed too. And it means so much to us that you are here and that we can share this experience together, and we can wrap our arms around one another, and we can be there to support one another and to honor those who paid the ultimate price. These are real people. These are real people. And I tell my students regularly that people matter. People matter. And sacrifice is real. Sacrifice is necessary. Sacrifice is something we have to be willing to do in our lives for the good of country, for the good of others, for the good of our families. We have to be willing to do those things. Real people. My students learned other great, powerful lessons along the way, and I'd like to impress those things upon you here today as well, if you'll allow me, as they relate so powerfully to this memorial that we are unveiling today. People have largely forgotten about the details of many aspects of World War II, the war in which these young men were lost, how significant World War II truly was, and how great the sacrifices were by so many people at that time. World War II was indeed an immersive effort that affected virtually every part of a person's life here in the United States and abroad. Today in the United States, I think if you think about it, we have with us people who are active duty military, and we're grateful for your service. We have with us people who are retired military, and we're grateful for your service. But today in this country, most families don't have in their family someone that is active in the military, serving overseas in the line of fire on a regular basis. That's not something that's nearly as common as it was in World War II. Something else that we see during World War II was the effect of wartime rationing, and it had a tremendous impact on this country. But people were willing to do it because it wasn't for self, it was for country. It was for community. It was for their neighbors. So many things were rationed. Rubber was rationed because it was needed for the big tires on our planes, like the B-17 that we have here from the Commemorative Air Force at the Reno Municipal Airport that you can visit later on, and we'll be here through Wednesday. We needed those resources to fight a war. We needed them for Deuce-and-a-half trucks and other vehicles that were essential to the war effort. We needed gas. We needed fuel, and so it was rationed. We needed to win the war, and people were willing to make those sacrifices. If you haven't seen ration books from World War II and haven't learned about that, I encourage you to look into that. Did you know, this is something that I uncovered in doing our research, that there was actually a victory speed of 35 miles an hour that people were encouraged to drive during World War II. Victory speed. Can you imagine driving 35 miles an hour everywhere you drive today? People would be like, what are you doing? It was a sacrifice. It was for country. It was for community. Nylon was rationed because it was needed for parachutes and cords used on airplanes and other military vehicles. It became a common practice for women who saw wearing nylon pantyhose as a luxury to use a pin and draw a line down the back of their leg so that it would look like they were wearing nylons when they really weren't. A little funny thing from World War II, but many people don't know it. Food was rationed because it was needed to supply our troops, and there were fewer men back home who were farming and providing us with our food here.